After Brock's untimely departure, choosing to stay with Professor Ivy over traveling with Ash and Misty around the Orange Islands, these two find themselves lost and somewhat stranded in the middle of a foreign location, especially with their beacon of wisdom and direction gone. As they try to work by themselves on how to navigate the island independently and not get fed up with each other by the shore, they witness an exhausted Lapras being abused by a bunch of gangsters. Ash attempts to stop them and commands Pikachu to attack, but before either side can land a hit, this guy shows up. He starts examining each Pokemon, commenting how the gangsters' Pokemon are all getting insufficient nutrients, while Ash's Pikachu looks perfect by its shiny coat. But Pikachu's not shiny. He tries to measure Pikachu's power levels with his voltmeter, but the gang uses his opportunity to attack them, so Pikachu zaps all of them at once. When the gangsters are gone, the guy quickly tends to Lapras, hands Ash a medicine to give it to it, and runs off to call for Nurse Joy's help. In the Pokemon Center, this guy introduces himself as Tracey Sketchit. He's a Pokemon watcher, one who travels the world to observe and study Pokemon's characteristics and abilities, and even search for new and undiscovered Pokemon. Tracey, Ash, and Misty take on their mission to reunite Lapras with his friends. But soon, Ash overhears about something like battling the Orange Crew. He wonders what's that about, so Tracey explains to him everything about the Orange League and how the Orange Crew are some of the toughest trainers in all of the Orange Islands. This piques Ash's interest, and now he wants to first challenge the Orange League before delivering the GS Ball back to Professor Oak. So, Misty drags him to call the professor to know his thoughts about this. Turns out, Tracey is the biggest fan of Professor Oak. He claims that just about every Pokemon watcher in the world dreams of having the reports reviewed by Professor Oak. Tracey considers Professor Oak to be his hero. So with the goal of meeting his lifelong hero, Tracey invites himself as Ash and Misty's new traveling companion. Just as he says this, they find out that Lapras has finally recovered. But then, Team Rocket captures this poor child and drives away. So, Tracey smartly calls for his trusty Venonat to use its radar eyes to track Team Rocket's whereabouts. Tracey, Ash, and Misty soon catch up to Team Rocket thanks to these bikes from who knows where. Ash frees Lapras before they plummet into the ocean. And next thing we know, Ash has already caught it. And this Lapras is the very Pokemon that transports Tracey, Ash, and Misty around the islands of the Orange Archipelago. Little does Tracey know that the trajectory of his entire life is about to change. Yes, this boy who currently roams the Orange Islands and enjoys Pokemon watching. As a direct replacement to fan favorite Brock, Tracey had big shoes to fill. He served as the group's level-headed source of wisdom, the mature one who thinks most rationally, the one who settles disputes, and the one who showcases the most knowledge about Pokemon. It was the time when the Pokemon anime thought that Brock would probably be a controversial character for the West, so they went for someone more standard, like Tracey. And honestly, they achieved what they were going for. With Tracey, they retained most of the great stuff that made Brock an important character, while watering down the things that could become controversial. Tracey still likes Jennies and Joys, but he's much more low-key about it. Tracey being low-key truly fits his profession as a Pokemon watcher. Speaking of that, Pokemon watching may sound like an absurd thing to do in the Pokemon world, but in several episodes we see Tracey pull off some amazing skills thanks to his years of Pokemon watching. In one episode we see him skillfully observing a pink Rhyhorn, not leaving a trace of his presence as he observes from downwind and matches the Pokemon's breathing. His cat-like curiosity would truly make him an awesome researcher, you know, maybe like a professor's assistant or something. One day he meets Dr. Quackenpocker, a famous Pokemon watcher. And together they spend an entire evening watching a school of Magikarp climb a torrential waterfall and rush to the sea, with some of them evolving. It is a wonderful, once-in-a-lifetime experience for Tracey, seeing these many Magikarp together on what looks like a pivotal moment in their lives. Tracey's Pokemon are all excellent for utilities, oftentimes being the key weapon to saving the day, especially when it comes to dealing with Team Rocket's shenanigans. Venonat's got amazing radar eyes, and Meryl's got sensitive hearing, both excellent at locating stuff. But what Tracey needs on his team is a fierce battler. Well, one day our heroes stop by Murkoff Island, an island famous for its bug-type Pokemon, which turns out to be Tracey's favorite type of Pokemon.
Oh, I get it. When it comes to bugs, Misty's a chicken. Ow!
Who are you calling a chicken?
Tracey, Ash, and a petrified Misty venture through the woods and encounter lots of bug Pokemon, until stumbling across his injured Scyther. Unlike most Scyther, this one looks older. Definitely a skilled seasoned battler, but perhaps a little bit past his prime. Ash attempts to catch it first, but he fails, and that's where Tracey steps in. He orders Venonat to use Sleep Powder, and then he proceeds to catch it with his Pokeball and take it to the Pokemon Center. There, Scyther is treated with utmost care. Nurse Joy explains that the reason why this Scyther is injured is because it lost a battle against a younger Scyther. This has led to it getting dethroned from its position as a swarm's leader. As a result, Scyther is left to live by itself and would only be able to join a new swarm if it wins another leadership battle. Professor Oak congratulates Tracey for capturing Scyther, but to him, he doesn't count it as a legit win, because Scyther was injured to begin with and it's not happy. Right now, Scyther is injured both physically and mentally, so Professor Oak suggests Tracey to try to help Scyther to regain confidence in its strength and itself. Tracey then spends the next few minutes beside Scyther, trying to comfort and reassure him. When Ash proposes that Scyther could try to regain leadership of its swarm, Tracey supports the idea and offers to help train with Scyther. Then when Team Rocket manages to capture its swarm, it's as if Scyther could hear their cry. Its inner spirit awakens and it escapes the Pokemon Center through the window glass. Too bad it's too injured so it falls down at first, but its instinct to protect its comrades is stronger, so he pushes through towards the direction of its swarm, and in the blink of an eye, Scyther slashes through the net and frees its swarm from the hands of Team Rocket. Then comes the battle. Weezing tries for Smokescreen, but Scyther's spinning Sword Dance acts to blow the smoke away. Ash and Pikachu lend a helping hand, but Scyther sees it as its battle. Not just any other battle, but a battle to rescue its friends and a battle of pride to prove itself and to the others that it's still a competent battler worthy of respect. Scyther puts its trust in Tracey as its new trainer, and together they run circles around Team Rocket. That is, until Scyther loses most of its strength and it's unable to attack. But thankfully, the new leader steps in to protect the old Scyther from Arbok's Poison Sting. They work together to slice Team Rocket into bits, and in the end, both Cyphers shake hands, or scythes. As a sign of respect, the younger Scyther continues to reign as the swarm's leader, while our older Scyther decides to travel with Tracey for the rest of its life. Well, whatever's left of it. With that, Tracey makes his first and only capture in the Pokemon anime series. After a short yet fun adventure in the Orange Island supporting Ash on his quest for badges, Tracey finally gets to visit Pallet Town, home of his favorite professor. He's nervous and excited as he inches close to Professor Oak's lab. He can't wait to show him all his sketches and let the professor evaluate them. So after stopping by the Ketchum's residence where he meets Delia and Brock, Tracey finally steps foot on the laboratory that was once only seen in pictures. Never would he have expected to be friends with someone who's close with Professor Oak, so it truly feels like fate brought him here. They walk in, and Tracey finally gets to see his hero face to face in the flesh, under a pile of muck. Ash is quick to give Oak the GS ball, and they proceed outside, where Ash is excited to reunite with his Pokemon. There, Tracey starts sketching Ash's Tauros in action. Professor Oak notices this and finds interest in his sketches, so Tracey takes the opportunity to ask Professor Oak if he could evaluate some of his best sketches. Tracey is shaking uncontrollably at the sight of this, but before the professor could finish the evaluation, Team Rocket invades the lab and attempts to see all the Pokemon. Even Tracey's sketches get sucked by the vacuum. Thankfully, Gary is there to save the day, so Tracey's sketches are safe and sound. Upon further evaluations, Professor Oak couldn't seem to figure out the mysteries of the GS ball, so he requests Ash to deliver the ball to the Pokeball expert Kurt in the Johto region. This means that our heroes, Ash, Misty, and Brock, are bound for a whole new adventure. Wait, I said Ash, Misty, and Brock, so what about Tracey? Well, at dinner, Tracey reveals that Professor Oak let him be his assistant in the lab. He learned from Ash to go for what he really wants to, so Tracey shot his shot, and now he's literally Professor Oak's main partner in the Pokemon research department. That is a dream come true and a beautiful ending to his story. When Team Rocket interrupts their dinner celebration, Tracey's Pokemon blast Team Rocket off one more time, and the next day, Ash, Misty, and Brock leave for the Johto region, leaving Tracey behind, happy and fulfilled, working with his hero, so he can't wait to see which kinds of Pokemon Ash brings home from his travels. After spending lots of time as Professor Oak's aide, a problem arises in Oak's Corral. When a cluster of Hoppip families migrate around the area, a fight between them, the Oddish families, and a bunch of water Pokemon ensues over territory. And while Oak and Tracey could solve this problem, they believe it's best for Pokemon to be the ones to figure this out by themselves. So their solution is to ask Ash if he could send in his Bulbasaur, since it's the best Pokemon for the job, given its experience in handling lost Pokemon before. Tracey spends the whole day observing Bulbasaur's ambassador skills in action. At one point he even sent his Pokemon out to help stop a rumble. He made some sketches and filmed the entire thing. Tracey continues to observe as the Pokemon work together to build a new lake for the grass Pokemon. But when Bulbasaur gets seemingly crushed by a huge boulder, Tracey and Oak now step in to help push away the boulder. Thankfully, Bulbasaur is safe all along. Unfortunately for Ash, Bulbasaur's respectable presence is what the forest needs to keep the peace between family lines. So it stays alongside Tracey and Professor Oak for an indefinite amount of time. With Bulbasaur and later Bayleaf 2 in the Oak's Corral, Tracey's got like 2 trusty partners by his side. So I guess you could call Bulbasaur and Bayleaf as Professor Oak's assistants. Bulbasaur is responsible for peacekeeping, while Bayleaf is the one helping with feeding the Pokemon. One day, Tracey opens the door to a Magikarp salesman claiming to sell one that lays golden eggs. Tracey's of course not buying this, besides, Pokemon are not being bought or sold, so he and Professor Oak scare the Magikarp salesman away. Little do they know that an even greater Pokemon threat is about to come. Enter Biff and Cassidy. They stealthily infiltrate the lab and snatch all the Pokemon, and Professor Oak doesn't even seem to notice. Good thing Bulbasaur senses them, so it drags Tracey and all the Pokemon. Their detective skills are put to the test, and together they track down Bob and Cassidy's location. Tracey sends out a Scyther to help battle Team Rocket, and together with everyone's help, Brad and Cassidy are sent blasting off and all the Pokeballs they stole are successfully rescued. Not long after, Boink and Cassidy strike back, but this time they don't intend on stealing some Pokemon. Instead, it's Professor Oak who they want to steal. Back at the lab, Tracey is greeted by Richie, who wants to consult the professor regarding his Pokemon. But as soon as Tracey video calls Professor Oak, they learn from Mary that he vanished without a trace. Or a Tracey? So now Tracey and Richie are on the mission to rescue Professor Oak. They merge their brains and methodically gather for clues, asking questions until they're able to put 2 and 2 together to find Professor Oak's whereabouts. Tracey again sends out Scyther to battle, and with an Indigo League quarterfinalist by his side, they easily win the match and save the professor from being oak-napped. Later that day, Tracey would go on the show and join the I wouldn't eat that if I were you contest. Aside from being Professor Oak's trusty aide, Tracey often visits Cerulean City to deliver some goodies, do some random stuff like teaching Scyther how to swim, helping Misty forge her Cascade badges, serve as a referee in their official gym battle with Sakura, or help out with the gym's needs. With Daisy being Daisy, Tracey sometimes gets dragged into doing manual labor for her.
You know, sometimes I wonder if it really does pay to be the nice guy.
But hey, at least she's taking him out for dinner as a thank you gift, or rather, she's letting him take her out to dinner. One day he once again gets pressed by Blipbug and Cassidy when they steal Daisy's Loverin out from the gym. So Tracey comes up with a brilliant plan. Using Casserin's compass-like abilities to find Loverin, High-Speed Hannah drives at full speed until they catch up to Team Rocket's hovercraft. But when it hops into the ocean, Tracey single-handedly inflates their boat so they can chase after them.
You out, Tracey, but as an actress, it's better to observe.
Of course it is.
Eventually they find Team Rocket in a cave, but they get outsmarted as Bank and Cassidy trap them and steal Casserin too. Eventually Tracey manages to grab hold of the remote control, which allows them to escape, and thanks to the Cerulean sisters and the loveless couple, Banana and Cassidy's many splendid plans are foiled once more. And another thing, this episode told us Tracey doesn't like wearing tights. Very important. Spending most of his days with Professor Oak has truly allowed him to learn more about Pokemon. From looking after the littlest ones, starter Pokemon that await to venture with a new trainer, journeying to study the biggest, most mysterious, even prehistoric ones that could make for invaluable discoveries. Tracey has been by Professor Oak's side through all those expeditions, though I'm pretty sure the Aerodactyl situation still haunts Tracey to this day. One time he even yells at a kid named Gilbert, who's the mayor's son, and lectures him how raising Pokemon is fun and is the very point of becoming a Pokemon trainer, after Gilbert comments on how annoying it is to raise a Pokemon. It's probably the angriest we've ever seen of Tracey. Sometime later, Ash returns to Pallet Town after the Hoenn League. Misty, May, and Max are here too. And we learn that Tracey's mirror has produced an egg which he gave to Misty, and the egg hatched into the sweet little Azurill. Then while feeding the 3 starter Pokemon, Max is impressed with Tracey's sketches. He thinks Tracey's awesome, being Professor Oak's assistant and having these wonderful sketches. With all of Ash's Pokemon out the lab, it's the perfect time for Team Rocket to capture them. And yes, it's no longer Cassidy and Bobby, but our OG Jesse and James. Tracey and Misty call out their Meryl and Azurill, and the parent-child duo douse Team Rocket with their water gun before they're blasted off. With Tracey, Ash is sure that his Pokemon are in good hands. He's always there to greet Ash every time he comes home. When Ash and Gary battled after the Battle Frontier, Tracey is there to act as the referee. From the Johto League and all the way to the Masters Day tournament, Tracey watched Ash's battles consistently, never failing to support his longtime friend. At the end of this show, we see Tracey once more, this time with a fully evolved Venomoth, and glad to see his old friend is now heralded as the strongest trainer in the world. Behind this newly crowned world monarch and this world-renowned professor is a trusted confidant who joyfully supports him all throughout without asking for anything in return. And through his sketches, stories are told, learnings are discovered, and joys are sparked to people's day. It all started with a boy who once roamed the Orange Islands and enjoyed Pokemon watching. That is the story of Tracey Sketchit. Thank you so much for watching Tracey's Complete History. Comment below your favorite moment of his vastly underrated character. But for now, I've got some Pokemon to watch, so it's been your boy Luap, and I'm out. Peace.